So today what we were going to be doing is creating something called a self-portrait multiple, where you will be taking photographs of yourself in different placements using a tripod or stabilizing the phone in some way so that each shot is identical except with you in a different position. Here's the finished image that we're going to be working with as a tutorial, and then you'll be doing this yourself later on. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to hit the escape key here on the computer there, and we're going to go ahead and close this up, and we're going to get started by actually going into the folder and taking a look at some of the different images that we're going to be working with. So as you can see here, I've taken myself in this field using an iPhone camera on a tripod, and you'll notice there's a little bit of shifting, but for the most part everything is color balanced correctly. That's because I I pressed and held on the screen to set the color when I was taking the shots, and I used the timer to get away from the camera and photograph myself in the field. And you can see there are different locations where I'm located in the frame, and then we have this light bulb that we downloaded from the internet. So let's get started by just opening up one of these. I want you to select the one that's the closest to the camera. That'll be our base image. So we're going to just go ahead and drag that image into Photoshop to open it. We could just drag it onto the icon, or within Photoshop you could just select open and then create and open this, and what you should have is this background image with this photograph in it. Now we're going to go back to our selection here, and we've used this image, so I want you to shift select the other images in the stack, and I want you to drag them right on top of our original image. And what that's going to do is bring up a cropping area, and we're just going to hit the return key until each image is brought in. And you can see I'm hitting the return key, and each image is being brought in as a smart object. Now we are going to select all these smart objects using the shift select here in the layers palette, and we are going to right click on one of the words and bring up our dialog to raster the layers, and we're going to make all those smart objects go away, and now these are just normal objects that we're using to work with. Now if you go through the stack, I'm going to turn these off. You can see there's slight shifting. Do you see how this image shifts slightly? We're going to use a feature called auto align to align all the photographs so they don't shift at all. And the way you do that, I'm going to select the background image first, and I'm going to go to the top of the stack and hold the shift key down. Now I've got every single thing selected here. I am now going to go to the edit, auto align layers. And what that does is if you had one or more photographs, which we do, it will try to figure out how all those photographs fit together. So if you slightly move the camera slightly, this will actually help you. And I'm going to hit the OK button on the auto, and it's going to take a little bit of time. And what it's going to do is look for every photograph and try to get each photograph to somewhat align. And you can kind of see that there'll be some lines. It'll have moved some of the photographs physically for you, but as you can see now, there's very little shifting that's happening in the scene between the photographs. So as I turn off each photograph, the background seems to remain fairly constant, if just a little bit of darkening or lightening based on the light. But as far as placement, that tree is pretty much in the same place the whole time. All right, the way this works is what we're going to do is we're going to start with our base image, and you can see it's now layer 0 because of the auto align function, so we don't have to worry about making it that way. And we're going to just physically take a look at each photograph, and we're going to bring the photographs that are closest to the camera to the bottom of the stack. So you can kind of see that this photograph is closer than this photograph. So I'm going to take this photograph and just bring it down a couple so that it's more to the bottom of the stack. This photograph right here at the top of the stack is very close to the camera, so I'm going to bring that down almost to the bottom, but not quite, because the bottom one is the closest. And the idea here is we want to have a kind of a stacking order. So as you get closer to the camera, you can see that this one is farther away. This one is about the same distance. This one's closer than this one, so we're going to bring that down. And you want the ones that are closest to you to be the ones that are nearest the bottom. And what we're going to do now is turn off all the eyeballs, and we're going to get started. So the idea here is this will be our base, and then everything else we will just introduce into this area. So this will be the main photograph that we're using. Now, if you're not happy with this as your main photograph because there are issues, I would pick another one that's closer to the camera as your base. So I'm going to turn on this next layer, this layer right here, and you'll notice that if I turn it on, I don't see this image. And that's okay, because what we're going to do now, I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to mask this person out, but keep so that you'll just see just this person and the chair and the shadow from the chair. So what we're going to do, just to make it really quick, is we're going to go to the selection tool, the quick select, and we're just going to draw a rectangular marquee around this whole area and just let go. Now this is not going to get everything, as you can kind of see, but if we hit the mask button right now, you'll see exactly what happens. You'll see that at least some of this got through. Now this is the nice part. We're going to go to the brush tool, B for brush, and I'm going to hit the I'm going to be painting with white, so white is selected here, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller. And what I'm going to do is go around and make sure that all the things that I wanted are included in this. And you can see you could be fairly sloppy because the background is actually exactly the same in all the photographs. So you can see it as I paint this chair in, I can make a mistake here because that grass is the same as the underlying grass. And this is the nice part about taking multiple photographs, and you can kind of see I can get this. Now you see where this area, they're overlapped, so I'm going to paint just the opposite color. So I'm going to hit the X button to switch to my black, and I'm going to actually paint this away so that I'm not in the photograph. So the idea is we're painting in elements until it looks realistic. And I'm looking for to get rid of any fringing. So you can kind of see here's some fringing. So I'm going to zoom in here, make my brush a little bit smaller, and then use the opposite and then paint this chair back in. And the idea is if you can get this to look as realistic as possible, okay, this was originally there, that's what we're going for. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time, and this is the reason why the foreground object should be in front, because or at least near the bottom, because if we had started with something really far away, we might be wasting our time because it might be behind one of the foreground objects. So here's what we've got so far. Okay, everything looking good. So we're going to go to our next photograph. So we're going to go up the stack, turn this on, and we can see the photograph here. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see. And we're going to marquee around this just as a really quick way of grabbing this photograph, this person. Make the mask by clicking the mask button. And now we're just going to use our brush tool, and we're going to paint in all the elements that are not in. And we're going to be really loose here because, and you can kind of see this is like a little bit of a problem, but the mask seems to have fixed that. And we want that chair completely returned. And also under the chair, there's always like some shadows, so make sure those get painted in. And everything looks pretty good. So that's our next layer, and you can kind of see with that mask, we're going to go to the next one. That's here, and we're just going to again do the same thing over and over. So we're going to select this area, hit the mask button, and then zoom in and then fix any issues that we see that are missing. So we'll use the brush tool with white, and you can kind of see how I'm just going to paint in the shadows and the base of this chair, and a little bit of my feet, and anything that looks like it's not quite perfect. And you can kind of see the light bulbs there. It's pretty good. This is fine. And just checking here, top of the chair, want all that highlight. And that looks like it's pretty good. And then zooming out, we'll see what we're doing. We go to the next layer, do the same thing again. Selection, quick select, just as a general shape, hit the mask button, and now go into the mask with our brush tool and brush everything that's missing into the space, especially the shadows. That's really where this works. Now you can kind of see what's happening here because of the different lighting situations. I'm going to be more careful and just kind of brush that tree back in so that this does not have any fringing. There we go. And we're going to command 0 to like view our entire scene so far. And then we're going to, now this one should have been closer, but I'm assuming it won't overlap, but we'll find out. Again, we're going to select that image, go to our selection area and just select them very quickly and zoom in and brush with white, the opposite. The shadow back into the chair and anything that's missing outside, like there's a little bit of that light bulb missing. That looks good. And the idea is how realistic can we get this when we're zoomed in, because this will be printed. We're going to turn this one, last layer on. Let's see where that person is. It's over here. And we're just going to quick select, object select, just select it, hit the mask button, and you can kind of see that just barely missed that first person. And I'm going to use the brush tool with white and make sure I brush around the base here. Make sure I've got the chair, and if the chair overlaps with this person, I don't bring that chair in, which is what I'm going to do right there. And again, you can always get closer, hit the X button, and don't like that fringing, and just kind of use the paintbrush on that mask layer to bring these things in as if you're painting in detail in a painting. All right, at this point we've got our entire image selected and it looks good. The next thing we're going to do is just kind of bring this image together a little bit using the light bulb idea. The idea originally I had was I was putting up light bulbs in the sky to illuminate the field, and so I did bring in a light bulb. So we're going to go file, we're going to select Photoshop, file, open, and we're going to open up that light bulb image that's in this area called light JPEG, and just open it up. I'm going to have you go to image size so that you can see that this is a very small image. It's only 720 pixels, whereas my camera images is like thousands of pixels. So what I want you to do is actually we're going to change the size of this image. I'm going to go to %, and we're going to make this image 300% bigger. In other words, 3 times the size, and we're going to hit OK. And when you do that, it makes that image much larger, although it looks exactly the same, but it will have more pixels to work with. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is go to select color range, and what we're going to be doing is selecting all the white so that we can make that disappear. I'm just going to sample the white, holding the shift key down and dragging here has sampled the white, and I want you to change the fuzziness to about 70. We're going to hit OK, and that will give us our selection here. We're going to make the mask layer, and just by clicking mask, and you can see it's just the opposite of what we want, so I'm going to command I to invert that. And here is the light bulb that we're going to be now moving into that Photoshop document we were working on. I'm going to move the tab down, just like we've done in class, and I'm going to take this entire layer, layer 1 or layer 0 here, and drag it into my frame. And you can see now I've got my light and I've got the cord. There's a little bit of fringing that's happening, as you can kind of see. The selection wasn't perfect. Hopefully we'll be able to pick something that'll allow us to make that work. So let's go ahead and click on the mask layer on this layer. I'm just going to call it light, so you know that we're working on the light layer. And I'm going to double click this mask layer, and what I'm going to do is shift that edge in a little bit so that it actually cuts a little bit more into the light, and you can kind of see it's also cutting into the fringing. I'm going to hit the smooth button a little bit to make that work, and I'm going to hit the OK button and see if that has removed some of the fringing, which it kind of has. I'm not worried too much about the light part because we're going to fix that with a little bit of a glow. So I'm going to move this light. I'm going to zoom up and move this light just to right around here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. So I'm going to hit the plus button next to the trash can. I'm going to go to my brush tool and select the white brush and make it really big, and I'm going to change this hardness to 0 if it hasn't been 0 already. And I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger, and this glow is what we're looking for. So I'm going to just click once on top of this light to kind of hide the light, and then I'm going to dial this down using, I think I'm going to use this overlay feature. You can kind of see that brightens up everything in the image below it, and that's going to be underneath the light, so that this light will then actually make anything that this light is near kind of glow. So I'm just going to call this glow. Now I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to put this above, so I'm sandwiching the light between this glow, the light itself, and then this time we're going to hide this light bulb. So I'm going to click again one time with my brush with white to paint that in. I'm going to undo that and paint right on top of that. Perfect. And I'm going to change the opacity, dial that back a little bit to around 80. So now we've got a layer that's actually affecting the light so that we don't see it as much, and so this light now looks like it's glowing. Now all three of these things, that layer that I just made, which is in front, so I'm going to call it front glow, the light, which has the mask, and the glow layer, all three of these I would like them sandwiched together in a folder. So I'm going to hold the shift key down and select all three of these, click on the folder, and what that does is it groups all three of these elements into one folder. And so if I were to go back to my move tool here, I could actually move all of these at the same time, as you can kind of see, which is really nice. So I'm going to call this light, so I know what's in that folder, and I am going to put that light right around here. You can kind of see that it's a little bit large, so I'm going to transform it, Command T, and just bring this light down a little bit in size to right around that, and then I'm going to hit return, and that sets that. And you can see right now that this is in front of the people, or the person, and I want this light to be underneath everything. So I'm going to take this group and I'm going to physically drag it down the stack until it's one above the layer 0 here. So the light will be behind all the images here. And now you can see that some of my details here are a little bit problematic. So I can go back into this mask and fix that. So I'm going to move the light so that it makes sense to where this person is holding stuff. Now I'm going to go into my mask, and you can kind of see I'm going to use my brush tool, B for brush, and make it really small with the bracket keys. And I am going to paint X with black, and you can kind of see how this is going to look. And I'm just going to get rid of some of this fringing that's around the hair, because it's like making the hair a little bit. You can kind of see the light is really affecting this area. There we go. And then make the brush a little smaller, get rid of some of this detail here. And there we go. And you could be more precise if you wanted to. Again, this is just allowing that light to kind of come through. And I'm painting the mask on this image, so this is kind of bringing it all together. Now make it a little bit bigger, get rid of this blue area here, and just zoom out, and this is what I've got so far. I don't think I'll have to do that again. So now I'm going to go back to this light, and I'm going to jump this layer, Command J, and I'm going to now go to the move tool, V for move, and I'm going to move this light to a different location. And you can see how this is affecting different parts of the image just by having the lights, you know, over here or some other locations. This person is also putting up a light, and you can kind of see the light needs to get smaller. So Command T, and I'm going to just dial this in a little bit smaller. And I'm also going to hold the Shift key down and pull it Shift key down and pull the top just to make it a little longer so it goes right to the top here, and let go. And we can see that that image is this one, and we're going to go in and try to fix that as well. So I'm going to just use the brush tool, B for brush, and paint with black. And there we go. I might bring that light copy that I just made down a little bit so that it's right on top, like that. And maybe even make it a little smaller. I'm going to actually jump this layer, Command J, and move this guy over here, because that's something that I was going to move it up so that we see it there. And I'm going to just Command J again, and I'm going to move it like here, so that we have like these hanging pendants of lights. And I'll Command J again and move that over here just for balance. Looking at what we've got here, I'm going to Command J one more time and then move one over here just to fill in this space. I'm also going to make it smaller, Command T, and just scale that down so that it feels like it's farther away. And then Command J and move that over here. And that looks pretty good. So what we've got so far is something that looks like this. To sell the whole thing, we're going to go to the top of the stack here, and I'm going to add a new adjustment layer just by clicking on this little adjustment layer here. And I'm going to select brightness contrast, and I am going to bring the brightness down a little bit. You can kind of see how that, I'm going to move the properties panels here. You can see how the brightness kind of really helps to sell that this is in the dark. I'm going to lower the contrast a little bit. Okay, and what I'd like to do is have this area be, I'm going to close this properties panel. I'd like to have this part be a little bit brighter, and then just the sky and this part be a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do is go into this mask, and I'm going to use the gradient tool, G for gradient, and select that. Make sure my gradient is set to just normal black to white, and that the linear gradient, the first one, is selected here. And I'm going to click from the bottom up, and if I've selected black and white here, what you'll see is what I just did, which is the black at the bottom, which makes it more transparent. You can kind of see, and then the top makes it lighter. So I'm going to try that again, because I'd like a longer transition to make it a little bit more smooth, something like that. So you can kind of see that this layer is only affecting really the top layer. You can kind of see that when I turn off this mask, it gets darker down here, and I like what's going on here. And then finally, I want to do a little bit of a color correction for the whole thing, so I'm going to do a new adjustment layer. Again, these will affect every layer that it's on, and I'm going to do color balance, which is one I usually use. Set it to midtones, and that means that most of the main colors. I'm going to warm this up a little bit just by dragging the yellow slider up a little bit. I'm going to drag the magenta slider a little bit as well to give this a little bit of a evening feel here. And let's see, maybe give it a little bit of red so that we get that glow in the background like it's sunset. And that is looking pretty much the way I want. Now I could go in and do other things if I wanted to. But at this point, the only thing left to do is to crop this image so that these fringes don't show up. And to crop something, you just select the crop tool, something we haven't done yet, C for crop. And you'll see that if I zoom in, the crop is live, so I can actually scooch these in. You can even see outside the frame where the lights are. Now, once you've cropped something, this is a permanent change to the image. So make sure that if you don't like what you did, make sure to undo it right away. So I've brought all these in, so it looks like it's good. So what I'm going to do is hit the return button to set that crop. And that's it. So this looks like the image is functioning the way I'm hoping. And finally, to export this, I'll go File, Export, or save as, and I'm going to save this as a JPEG. I'm also going to save it as a Photoshop document, because if I need to go back and fix anything, that'll be important. So I'm just going to call this Chris Photoshop document. And then finally, File, Save As, and then I'm going to change that to JPEG, and then this is what I will be turning in for the assignment. You can see 4.8 megabytes, which is pretty small, and that's good to go. And I'm going to be zooming in. There are some slight issues with the lights that I should have fixed ahead of time, that have like some of these fringing elements, and that's because the light, you can kind of see when we masked the light, I didn't do such a great job of masking these lights. So you can kind of see, I'm going to zoom out so you can see this, but this is the light that we started with. Let's see if I can choose a different light. So let's choose this light right here, that's right over here. And you can kind of see I've got like a little bit of an edge here. The front glow is fine. This is the issue, and then the back glow, and you can kind of see the back glow didn't quite get here, so you've got this line thing going on right here. So I mean, I could just in essence go to this glow and hit the erase button, E for eraser, and then just fix each one of these. And if I had seen it ahead of time, I would probably have erased some of these things so they didn't look so terrible. I'm also seeing some any type of fringing, but anyway, it's pretty obvious on some of these. But it's a little too late now, but just wanted to give you a heads up that you kind of want to do that beforehand so that you don't have these issues associated with some of the things that we're seeing here. Okay, hope that helps, and good luck with your version of a self-portrait multiple in the future.